What's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads, and especially all you gardeners out there? This is Mr. Weedman and Big Earl with the Grow Hour. Big Earl, my brother, how the hell are you?
What's up? I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. We're about to get baked. I love it. You know what I'm smoking today in honor of you? And you brought this strain over last night. This is one of the strains I still haven't smoked yet, and because I have so much. And this is the Strawberry Haze. Can you tell me a little bit about this since I'm smoking it for the first time?
Yeah, sure. So it technically is Afghui crossed to Strawberry Haze. That's just a long one to say. It came from a dude named 5150 out in Cali. He has a lot of cool stuff and runs through a lot. He does a lot like me, where he's just like lots of fun flavors, lots of new different stuff. On to the next one, kind of thing. Very strawberry-y though, and I ran it once and then bred with it because it was a not a very good structure, not something I wanted to fill my garden with, but super strawberry terps, and like very fun structure, and the flowers you could tell were a little bit more like land racy, and it was just a fun plant. But what'd you think of it smoking it?
It tastes very nice. I can't wait to feel the high. It's really good. Smooth on the throat too, which I like. But yeah, I could tell this strain here will not be a sleepy strain for me. So this strain with the haze style on there, kind of that uppity. It's probably like, a good mid hybrid, 60-40, 70-30, I presume, off my thinking.
I think Afghui is a land race even, or pretty close to a land race.
So yeah, you're talking about all uppity.
It's probably pretty uppity compared to
this would be great for Thanksgiving, so I don't go to sleep after eating turkey.
Yeah, you'll have to Strawberry Haze and some tryptophan.
There it is, everybody. There it is. So, what are you smoking on, my brother?
I am trying the UK Narcotics cross. Call it Yayo.
Yayo.
Yayo. It's UK Narcotics cross to the Florida Peaches.
Oh.
And it's very on the smell. It's very like lemon alcohol, like back of the nose, throat lemon. Yielded real good, looked real good. And the smoke's pretty straight on with there. It's lemon on the exhale. Not a ton on the inhale, real smooth though. And we'll see how she gets us high.
I like it. Definitely gonna take another hit of that Strawberry Haze. So I want to say something. The last episode we did was about Haze, and I want to say it was a phenomenal episode. Wolfman Jack, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you. I appreciate all the pics you've been sending me. I got to give you a shout out because you taught me something about Haze because I love it so much. So thanks for coming on, brother. I had to give you an early quick shout out before I get too stony baloney and I forget all about you. But thanks, Wolfman. We're looking forward to having you back on for your burping in the bag and then your roundtable discussion. But it was a good show, Big Girl. Thanks for introducing me to him, and I cannot wait to smoke his hash, and we're gonna have a surprise for everybody out there come the burping in the bag. I ain't gonna tell you about it, but there'll be a surprise with Wolfman Jack's his burp in the bag episode. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It'll be in the season, Christmas kind of Christmassy. It'll be a lot of fun. So stick around for Wolfman's hash segment of his burping in the bag. So anything you took from that one, man? Like we were talking about before we started recording about that show.
I mean, I appreciate him coming on, and I'm glad. I've been talking to him for a little bit, and he was on the fence a little bit. And every time I talked to him, it was like his hash knowledge. He would say words even that I was like, I'm not really even sure what that is. And so it was pretty like right away, from the first time I met up with him, and I was like, bro, run my shit, run my hash, run my weed to hash. But it was nice to finally have him on, and it was a really great episode. I liked it a lot, and
yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I want to sit by a fire and fucking do a show like that one day. Have a fireplace behind me, playing some Barry White.
All he was missing was a fur rug.
Yeah, and a nice hairy chest. Oh shit! So we talked about a few episodes back perpetual gardening, which was a phenomenal show. This show is going to be our introduction to organic gardening, which we've talked about organic gardening in some prior episodes, but this is a real thorough, way above my pay grade episode. That thank goodness I got Big Earl here, who's taught me a lot about organics. When I switched to organics, I don't know, 5 grows ago, 6 grows ago, I learned a lot. I learned what I did wrong that first 2 grows, and but that was just being like me not being unknowledgeable. But the organic soil mixture and what I got out of those plants that I grew, the terpenes were, and the trichomes, and I didn't get ginormous buds, but the bud structures that I got were beautiful, and the crystals all over everything were beautiful, and the flavor and the high and the smoothness. I say organics all the way. It is a little bit tougher to grow. I'm not going to say it's not. It will take you, if you're new to just starting with organics, it's going to take you a few. So do your research, listen to this show, but listen to other shows. Do your research on organic gardening. It's not the most simple thing that just throwing a bunch of soil and a bunch of nutrients and letting your shit just do its thing. This is going to take a little TLC, a little watching in the beginning. It does. I'm not going to lie. Remember Earl, the first couple of grows, I was very unknowledgeable in what I was doing. And now I'm getting better and better as we keep on going along. So I'm super stoked to learn on this one. So introduction to organic gardening, Earl.
Yeah. And it's an intro too, because like I read, some stuff and listen to some stuff, and I take this stuff and I use that information, and I say, well, seems to be working, So it'll be cool. I hope that we can do something further than an introduction, where we can bring somebody on and be like, hey, this isn't an introduction anymore. But yeah, you're right. There's this whole aspect. Organic gardening is kind of a prediction game, If you're going into something blind and you haven't tested soils or done all this or that, or don't have a mix already, it can be kind of hard. So that's where it's at right there, is saying, hey, my garden setup needs this type of whatever, and it needs this long to break down, and we'll get in on all that here in a second.
Yeah, and it might not be for everybody to go to organic gardening. Some people don't have the patience or the time, and it does take a little bit more time to learn. And some people just want to use a good soil and use some good nutrients and go. They don't want it. They just want to grab one mix and throw it in and not have to worry about pot sizes and all that shit. Just, I get it. I mean, it's all going to be up to you. This is just another way of doing things, another way to get something different into your gardening. So what is organics?
So organics is just natural almost. It can come in liquid or powder or lumpy. I know we've talked about that before, but a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, but I've heard people talk about how liquid can't be organic. It absolutely can. It can be big lumps of shit. It could be powdered already. It could be. It's just natural. It's that natural breakdown. So if you're breaking down leaves and all this stuff outside for compost, that's organic. Unless you're spraying nasty stuff on there. If you're not adding synthetic or salt derived nutrients, you're growing organically. And it has two sides to it, really, because the organic side is more than the food. When we add these lumps or these powders, there needs to be something there to break those down so your plant can absorb them. It's all about what can fit through your root cell wall. That's it. Organics is coming in. If you have a lump of shit, that's a big thing to break down. So say for, Thanksgiving, and you're going to have turkey, and your turkey is the size of an elephant. How are you going to get that inside your door? And that's where it is. That turkey's the size of an elephant. Oh, that's the piece of shit outside, or the powder or any of that outside the cell wall, outside the cell of the root. It has to break that down to bring it in. The biology then breaks that down. That's why you have to guess. That's why you have to know what your plant's going to need. Not now, in 3 weeks, in a month, and at the end of the season, at the beginning of the season, because you don't just get it right away. You can put it in there and it might be getting broken down a little bit right away, but you're not going to be able to feed the whole family inside, So I don't know if that answers so much what is organics, but it can be a lot.
I think it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a lot more to it, or a little less to it. But I think that's a fucking mighty fine answer. So why organics? I mean, why should I switch? Why should somebody out there? Why when I made the switch? We had some talks and I did some listening and some learning and some reading. But why should someone switch to organics?
Well, first off, it's cheaper. I mean, especially if you start to break it down yourself, some of these products that are organic, especially the liquid organic stuff, can be expensive. But when you get down to the like bare roots, like some of the stuff we're going to talk to today, it's super cheap. When we did the hemp stuff, we were flowering out a quarter acre. That's a lot of fucking hemp. Flowering out, these fucking plants were giant. We bought initially for 2 years. We bought it was just over $800 worth of all this organic food, bunch of like 50-pound bags of this, 25-pound bag of that, that kind of shit. $800 just over that. For 2 years, we ran a quarter acre, and we have half of that, maybe a third of that left. And so it's like compared to the type of plants that I would be doing in my house, and the number of plants and the weight, and the fact that those gardens were just getting stronger and stronger. Like we probably weren't going to have to feed those for a couple years, and maybe I'm off there, but it's just way cheaper when you get it broken down. It's better for you. We all know that. It's natural and normal and better for you in general, more sustainable in general. A lot of this stuff is literally shells, dried blood, seed meals, like just smashed up seeds. I mean, it's charcoal. Your plants are stronger. It's when they have the biology, when you're working with that organic, when you have those added natural things, your plant's just as stronger. And I could tell that on mine when I started adding organics. The more I could break it down and the more I could get into the organic and make it available, the more I saw my plant react to adding organics. And I think it gets kind of it's harder to get good weight on organics, but I've seen people, man, because you brought it up before, I've seen people do living soil beds, add like $50 worth of food every year, maybe every run, and these plants just blast out. Like where you're just like, geez, they don't have to worry about a lot of the bugs because they have that biology in the soils, and their plants are so strong. They're literally so strong on the skin of the plant that bugs can't penetrate, or if they do, they're like, fuck that. We're gonna grow these plants over here that aren't so strong, So there's a lot of reasons to go organic. But the biggest one would be it's better for you. You're using this as a medicine. Grow organically. There's organic pest management. There's organic food. There's organic everything that does it not only as well but better than any of this shit that we've made. And there's a lot of shit that we made that's nice. But I'm just saying, when you get into this stuff, it's just better. This whole lie that we'll talk about here soon is where where synthetic is easier and makes it is easier, I guess, but it makes things stronger and all this and that. It's just a lie. It's just been a lie, So,
So there's so many positives that you're talking about. Why not organics? Why the fuck not?
Well, you have to know about it. Like, it does take more than just like add this milliliter to that water and put it in there and you're good. And I think a lot of people, and we haven't really understood it that well. Weed is so great in so many ways, but one of those ways is it's really advanced. It's a cash crop. It's really advanced a lot of our understandings of how this stuff works. And it goes against the big guys, when you go into Home Depot and Lowe's and they say, oh yeah, this is great, that's great. And you take it home and you're like, man, this works really well because it's synthetic. That weed killer does work really, really well, but it kills and it's nasty. It kills all the weeds and it's nasty and it stays in your soil and it gets into water and so. But anyway, it goes against those big guys, and we know that going against those big guys have not been super, fruitful in the past for most people, so they don't.
Yeah, because they try to knock them out of the box.
Yeah, well, and the big guys are just, they have the advertisement and they have all their products on shelves and they can kind of create what this narrative is. And the narrative's been that organic isn't sustainable, that organic is more expensive, that organic, you can't control bugs unless you use all this nasty stuff. And it's just a lie, like we had just been talking, so I had to look it up, but I knew of this uh, study that had been done. And when I was told about it, or when I had read about it, it had been written a while ago, and it was like the 30-year anniversary of this study or something. But it's called the Farming System Trial, and it's the longest running side by side organic versus synthetic. It started in 1981. You can read it all on rodeleinstitute.org. But the long story short is that organic wins everything. Like when they break this shit down, organic wins. Like they got better yield. Like this shit, I don't want to like. I'm just gonna jump on there. I don't want to like repeat something that's wrong, but they had like the active soils, which was better for like disease defense. They had less erosion with the organic. It was flood resistant. It took in more carbon, so there was more biology down there. And they've been able to do like 40 years of that now. But there were so many reasons, and it was basically just came back and said, listen, you said, you being this synthetic industry, that this was better and all this. You claimed all this shit, and it's not right. Like it's not real. It's just a narrative that we think. But I'm telling you, dude, if you can lock in organics, we're going to talk about a recipe, if you want to call it that. So what I use, and I've used this, and I give it to my friends for house plants. I use it on my weed. I'll throw this recipe or a version of this recipe into my gardens. It's the same recipe we used on that hemp farm where we're getting 20-foot tall plants that we had to take off the top of our hoop house and everything, and we couldn't even control it.
Yeah, what's a hoop house?
What was that?
What's a hoop house?
It's like the greenhouse that just has the plastic over it. Gotcha. Like a real greenhouse would be hard or like a really nice plastic. It would have like fans and it'd be real big, but the hoop house you can take the plastic off. But they're still like, I think ours was like 15 feet tall. They're not.
Those plants were monsters when you sent me that picture,
dude. And they were just crazy. We added
they were monsters.
Well water is what we added that year only, and so that's why I say 2 years. We ran it 3 years, but we only fed 2 because the second year things got nuts, and then the third year it was pretty much almost straight volunteers because we had crossed a bunch of seeds the first year. We kept 2 separate males and just did a giant hemp cross in that little hoop house. Got some cool seeds though.
You had some cool looking fucking plants too.
Yeah, they're good.
They were beautiful.
Yeah, fuck, they're good. Yeah, beautiful. Long story short, organic wins everything. Like, there's all you gotta do is know how to put it together.
Well, you were telling me when we were doing the show, when we were talking about on the podcast practice yesterday, like who's to know in organics, and like you read a lot, you listen to a lot of podcasts, you read a lot of books on soil. And since we've talked, but who's to know in organics? Like who are the people should go read or look up, follow, stuff like that.
So most of any of this comes from not a ton of different people. There's an original. The first guy that I really started liking and it really got me into this was Jeff Lowenfels. And he does all those teaming books, teaming with nutrients, teaming with bacteria, teaming with fungus, and teaming with microbes, I think was the one that just came out. He for me really, and I know, I almost don't want to say her name because I'm going to butcher it and it's so terrible. Elaine Ingham. He oftentimes, says, "Oh, this is her study. This was back to her stuff," and I should have more on her, but I wasn't reading her. I was reading him. He makes everything very accessible. He makes stuff make sense. You're not reading you read words you don't know the whole time, but it makes sense. Like You say, oh yeah, okay, oh yeah, okay. I see how this is working. I see these relationships, and it's just a really good series to know. Especially the nutrient. I mean, the bacteria and the fungus and the microbes are great, but the nutrient one is the one that I really bond with or really like the most. Um, but yeah, he is the man. He does books, he does podcasts, he does all kinds of different ways of getting a hold of him. He's a writer for I don't remember the city, but he's one of the oldest or the oldest still running garden columnist in the country. He's been doing it for a long time. And a really cool thing to me too is he's in Alaska, so his laws really limit him, is what it seems like, and the nature there really limits him. And he's still finding all these great correlations and doing all this great science. But for me, he's the one that first put it in, like, hey, this is how these relationships work, and this is what it's not just throwing, organic food in here. There's this whole other part of this that you have to have right in order for that organic food to be accessible. Like that organic food is like food locked in a truck, and you have to have all that other biology to unlock that truck and to take that food out and to take it into your house. Like, and he really does a good job of breaking that down with 4 different books. And then, so the Rev, I don't know as much about. I had to look up online. I just really liked his True Living Organics book. But when I looked him up online, he is the cultivation editor of Skunk Magazine. He had his work featured in every issue, is what it said. And he did a lot of he'd been doing a lot of work on organic weed for a long time. So his True Living Organics book was really good. I read through that every now and again. And by read through, I mean like skim through and look at what I noted and look at, because I forget shit. I don't read shit very good the first time anyway, to be honest. It's the second and third reads for me if I can get to it like that. But I like that book a lot. And so this book I couldn't find because I take it with me a lot, like if I'm traveling or something. But Steve Solomon wrote a book called The Intelligent Gardener. He wrote a lot of short articles and different books. I really like The Intelligent Gardener. I have a couple of his other books. I didn't write them down. I should have. But that from him is where I got a lot of my soil recipe. He has a lot of different stuff out there. And so Solomon is Solomon. The Intelligent Gardener, great book. And the Rev, True Living Organics, that was a great book too. I think I mentioned the name of the book, and then the last one that I really liked that I wanted to mention in here was David Montgomery, Growing Revolution. That book to me, it's subtitled "Bringing Our Soil Back to Life." I don't think it's one that don't start with that one if you're trying to get on weed, but it was one that I just really liked, and we have like a little farm, and it gave me some ideas, and it's an eye-opening and fun read. And I said last on the last one, but one shout out to The Lean Farm by Ben Hartman is also kind of like that. It's a way to maximize yields and profits while minimizing time, and it's a pretty cool because that's kind of what weed's gone to. So the Lean Farm by Ben Hartman. Those would be the guys. Many minutes later, I like all those guys a lot, and there's many more books and authors out there, but those are the ones that I really vibed with.
I'm sure you'll get some people telling you on Discord what other books are out there. We can always share them on a later show. So now, the secret. Yeah. Big Earl, his secret mixture. How you got a light real quick? You got a smoke break real quick? Little high to talk about this one. While you were talking about those books, I ripped another one. That's pretty good. That's some good weed there, Big Earl. Yeah. Strawberry Haze got me fucking stony baloney.
Yeah, I like man. It's hard to grow a lot of it because it's hard to fill a room or even a table with the real different stuff where you don't have those flowers and the structures and everything people look for today. But man, I always am so happy when I have a plant or two like that where it can just be like, because those buds are a little bit longer and airier, but man, it's so good.
The smell was fantastic when I have it in the jar. The taste is good. The high is fucking. Phew, I'm stoned.
Yeah. That's on my next hunt. Is that cross to that sour strawberry from Bog Bushy Old Grower? Should be real nice.
There it is. So how do you do it? How do you make this mixture of beautifulness to get good organic soil, like to everything you've read and learned, and now we're throwing it in a bucket for you per se.
Yeah. Well,
no
that
pun
is what
intended.
I make. So at first I was like, okay, a lot of this stuff is for like gardens and farms and like big ass things, and I'm trying to put this into a 3-gallon pot, you know. So I went through and, like I said, Steve Sullivan is where I got a majority of my numbers, but they have it in, everybody that does recipes has it in parts. 1 part this, 2 parts that, whatever. So I broke it down into what would fit into a 5-gallon bucket. And I like the 5-gallon bucket because you can get the 5-gallon bucket, the lid, give it a little shake. It gives you a couple inches on top. Give it a little shake up. Mix things up really, really well. Stored in very easy in places. And it just works really well for me. So in the bucket, the first thing I like to do is add a medium. That's just something on the bottom that some of this stuff can kind of bind to. It can kind of air this out. I use something called Happy Frog just because it doesn't have a lot of food, but it does have a little bit of the bacteria and stuff, which I don't really care about in this situation right now. But I throw that in there first. And I throw that 2,000 milliliters of that. I measured this. I know milliliters is liquid, but I have the measuring cups that is all milliliters. And that's what I do a lot of my dirt work with. And so I was measuring this in my measuring cups. I should have probably gone off and weighed it, but I didn't. So it's in milliliters. So get a 2,000 milliliter measuring cup maybe, but or a 1,000. And you might do some of this a lot. 2,000 milliliters of a medium. You know, peat moss. You got Pro Mix. That's perfect. Something like that. 7,000 milliliters of seed meal. That's going to be just a nice base of a little bit of everything. But that's going to be your largest contribution here in food. Agricultural lime, 500 mils. That's what you see people pushing on the like fields and shit, making the lines. But the lime is, I have 2 limes in this, and that scares some people. But how I read it was they're there to control pH. They're not really available, or one of them at least isn't. So there's the ag lime, 500 mils. And then the Dolomite lime at 1,000 mils.
Dolomite. That was a good movie. That was a good movie with Eddie Murphy, by the way. Dolomite.
I don't know if I saw Dolomite.
Well, it was about the 70s actor. Dolomite was his name. So he had a saying to, oh my God, I can't remember, but the movie with Eddie Murphy, if you haven't seen it, playing Dolomite, who was an actor in the 70s, pretty fucking funny. It just, it's good to see Eddie Murphy in a different movie than some Disney movie all the time now. Every once in a while he goes back to his roots and plays something good. So,
yeah, Eddie's the fucking man. Well, it's nice to see Eddie in anything, but yeah, you're right. Okay, so ag lime 500 mils, Dolomite lime 1,000 mils. I like to come in with some kelp, 2,000 milliliters. Again, this is like measuring cup. I got a big, like 2,000 milliliter measuring cup is literally what I do this with. So, and it counts from 100 all the way up to 2,000. Makes things real easy. Bone meal, 2,000 milliliters. Anything bone, anything oyster can replace that. That's all about the calcium right there. So bone meal, oyster shell. The more any of this is powdered, the better. The smaller it can be, the better. 500 mils of gypsum. I add gypsum afterwards too, that we'll talk about. But just 500 mils of gypsum.
And makes tomatoes grow really big too, gypsum, just so you know, if you add it to your soil and you get your tomatoes. Makes them giant beefsteaks.
So this is an intro, I'm not an expert on it, but I've heard it does a lot of cool stuff. Like it's basically charcoal, right? Gypsum is, or a type of charcoal. It cleans the soil. It gives microbes a place to live. And it does a lot of cool stuff. And hopefully I'm not butchering. I should have done research before I said something like that. But
no, gypsum's. I'm telling you right now, it grows tomatoes. I use it. I've been using gypsum in my grow for a while now, and then also for gardening too. So it's good. It's really good, and it's like I said, it's like you said, it's basically a charcoal, but it's good stuff.
Really well. And then the last thing is 2,000 milliliters of phosphorus guano. Guano can do a lot of different stuff, but a guano heavy on the phosphorus.
Bat poop.
That's the middle.
Bat poop.
Exactly. And that's the middle number. So like a 0, 15, 0, or I can't remember. There's a few different ones, but that will be the guano you want. So you want something in there like a medium: seed meal, ag lime, kelp, bone meal, gypsum, dolomite lime, and phosphorus guano. That's what goes into my initial organic mix. Then that's mixed. That's in a 5-gallon bucket, right? I take a big old scoop of that. I throw it into an actual like tub, those black tubs you see in Lowe's. I throw a bunch of that in the tub. I throw some different bacteria and fungus products in there. I throw some sugars in there, some more gypsum, insect frass, a bunch of other stuff. At that point, it's kind of what you want and like in your soil. A lot of that stuff isn't carrying any kind of food charge. That's all just additives. You could throw a humic in there. You could throw all kinds of stuff. And sugars, if I didn't say that already. Like a sugar water, I like to give it a mist or just pour it in there and mix it up real good. But then you're pretty much good to go. You give that like 6 weeks at least. Don't mix it up all the time. Let it sit in that tub. Get that tub somewhere dark, somewhere where it's a little warmer, hopefully. When you open it up, it'll be moist in there. You'll probably see some fungus growing even. I show pictures all the time, like mushrooms growing out of my shit. That's just everything breaking down food. If you keep it in there longer than 6 weeks, add a sugar to it. Mix it up a little bit. You don't have to really turn it hard. But you got to add a sugar to it for things to have something to eat. But you're basically making your own water-only soil there. So you use that, and depending on how you grow, I mean, if you're growing in a 10-gallon fucking pot and only putting a few hundred watts over your plant, you probably grow all the way through that. Some nice, big-ass, healthy plants. If you're growing a little bit more aggressively with a smaller pot, you might have to add a PK boost or something when you flower, something. You don't want to add that initial organic mixture because that needs time to break down. That's what you're doing in all this. So if you're adding something down the way, make sure it's something that's available. If you're going organic, make sure it's something that's broken down or something that you're breaking down like a tea. But yeah, that's pretty much it, man. That's the whole initial charge there. Throw it into your shit and give it some time to break down, and you just made yourself an all organic, homemade in a tub down the stairs. Add it to your pots whenever you want to soil, and you can throw things in there like if you're at the beginning of veg, you can throw in some worm castings. If you don't want to throw that in much later. But yeah, you're at the beginning of veg, you can throw in some worm castings. You can do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Just know what it is. Worm castings is mostly nitrogen. You want things to grow a little faster. Worm castings is a nice all organic additive. Throw it in there. If you want to add some different humic acids, you want to add some different, I like throwing sulfur and diatomaceous earth in there.
Yeah.
Not
DE,
a lot of sulfur
baby.
because it'll kill different things, but the DE for sure, yeah, because that'll break down into silica. And the sulfur too is just like nice to have in there. You don't you don't want to overdo the sulfur on that soil. But I like doing a sulfur top for sure for flavor.
Let me ask you a question because I want to go back to the medium.
Yeah.
So, could it be just like a soil, like a regular organic soil to use too, or does it have to be peat moss?
It could if it was real dry. That's the biggest thing there. You don't
cocoa.
want
Could it be cocoa perlite?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
That's what I used. And I just didn't, you don't want if you can, or I used Happy Frog. Because it had it was a little fluffier than my cocoa perlite. you just don't want it to be real wet. You don't want it to be like clumpy in there. You don't want it, it's real dry in there, and you don't want it to like harbor a bunch of bacteria and stuff like that. Really,
Gotcha.
it will, and that soil will have that in there. You don't have to like sterilize it. You just don't want to be throwing in like wet medium.
Gotcha.
And if you throw something in there that has like salt in it, like a potting soil or something, it's not going to like destroy anything. You just might. It's just a little counteractive to what you're doing, But it wouldn't destroy anything really. It's just, But yeah, Pro Mix, a cocoa perlite, perfect, or just a cocoa even, perfect. Cocoa.
And you're gonna have to water a little bit more than you do with the soil. You got to water like every day or close to it, right?
So it depends on the medium you use then. So this food you would throw so I throw mine into a cocoa perlite mix. So we have. I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the medium in the actual mixture in the 5-gallon bucket. So the medium.
I was like, what medium do you use to mix? So I'm just saying. So because you said I before I do this, I just want to make sure I'm using the right medium to mix all this with.
I see.
You know what I'm saying?
So the medium, the 2,000 mils of medium that we talked about first, that goes into the 5-gallon bucket. It's just kind of like a fluffer. The medium that I mix it with after that, right, is I use a cocoa perlite, but you can use anything. Peat moss based. If you have something that already has food in it, it's the point of this is kind of create your own food. But say you're like, oh, well, this doesn't have a ton of food in it, but I want to boost it. That's definitely doable. But cocoa perlite I like a lot because you can water it every day. You don't maybe necessarily have to. But it's hard. You don't see a lot of negatives to overwatering cocoa. And one of the hardest parts of the peat moss or the soil or anything is to get your watering down for a lot of people. So the cocoa perlite is so easy and nice to put this into. Maybe put a little bit of extra calcium if you go with that too. A little bit extra of the oyster or the bone. Give the cocoa something just in case. You can't ever have too much calcium when you have that.
Okay, so that's where I was getting, I guess, trying to explain to people who are starting this out. So basically, your 2,000 milliliters is the fluffer, the buffer, and then you're adding all of your other ingredients, all your other nutrients and stuff like that, organic nutrients, and then you put that all into your cocoa perlite.
Exactly, that's all in a 5-gallon bucket. I'd say about 150 milliliters or so, and into 3 cubic feet. So like a bag and a half of a normal soil or of a normal bag. So not a ton, but not a little, And I like to add my other stuff too. So I always have this stuff. I'm always kind of messing around with this or that, but my base food all stays the same. That's all pre-made basically. I shake that shit up and I get my shot glass out and I count out my 30 mils 5 or 6 times and get my arms down in there and mix it all up in there.
Gotcha. That makes more sense to me now because I was like, it wasn't making sense to me because maybe because I'm stoned, but
well, I wrote it in there. There's 2 different mediums there. One's like you said, fluff the 5-gallon a little bit just to give it something to add, basically, so everything doesn't puff. When you add this, if it's all powder form, you get lots of powder in your face, and just having that down there to kind of like buffer that a little bit initially helped.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. Just kind of buffer it in general.
Makes sense to me now.
Yeah, buddy.
I gotcha. But I like that mix. So I mean, because if you're doing a 3-gallon bucket like I do, that's what I do. I run 3-gallon buckets. It's been easier that way than trying to go up. I don't have a lot of room in the tent, so to be able to run 3-gallon buckets and still have to use just a little bit of organic liquid, just to mix to throw some nutrient in. Because I'm only using a 3-gallon bucket, but don't have to use a lot of it because the soil the mixture you're saying here should feed that plant all the way till like flower, like
yeah, definitely to flower. And if you wanted to go a little faster, you can throw that. That's a general mix for me. So like I have a bag of worm castings, and when I'm doing a lot of times I use that mix to top my pots going into flower. So I only pot my plants like 2/3 of the way in, and I leave this gap at the top. Not only is it way easier to move them and lighter, but then when I'm in flower, I can top with this organic mixture because that's when I'm really wanting it. And this is just me. You can run this for the whole thing, you know. But for me, that's when I'm really wanting my flavors and my stuff to come out. So in veg, I don't run it a lot. I will run it in veg, especially like I just did an auto run in veg, and that's all I used.
Hmm.
It was cool. I used that, and I ran a really light vegetative mixture, and just it did really really well. That's what this was grown with right here that I'm smoking, the yayo.
Yeah, can't wait to smoke some yayo.
We just got this. You're gonna dig the flavor. The flavor is
I'm
very
looking
unique.
forward to it. So what do some of these things do?
So like the seed meal is a real good all around food. I should have done some research. Even it's been so long ago. The limes I know help balance the pHs. Kelps can really be all over the place as far as the food that goes in there. Bone or oyster is a calcium. The gypsum we already talked about is like a charcoal almost, but it does done a few different things. Clean and give homes to microbiologies and all kinds of stuff. And then the phosphorus guano is just that. And a lot of this, like so the phosphorus guano, that's just what I like. If you have an organic phosphorus product, it can take that place. You know, it can take that place. The one I have, I think, is 0.15.0. So if you have a phosphorus that's 0.30.0, use half of that 2,000 milliliters that we mentioned with it, and you got the exact same charge.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, that's really and the cocoa perlite. I know we mention all the time, but I like that because it's so hard to overwater, man. I know we already mentioned it, but
Right.
it's just the king. It's the king for me. It takes a watering like the true hydro, but it'll take the dry back also, and it's just yes, you can overwater, but when you overwater, maybe you get a little bit of stunt or a little bit of this, but really a long-term overwatering just gets like roots growing higher out of your fucking plant. If you see little white bumps on the bottom, overwatering.
That's
See
good
little
to
black
know.
bumps, scale maybe. I'm pretty sure
That's good to know. So
Yeah.
why the wait time? Why do we need that wait time that you suggested at 6 weeks, right? You said?
Yeah, the 6 weeks. So that is. So we had talked about like we can compare this maybe a little bit, and hopefully we're not saying just the same thing over and over. But let's go back to this food being outside of a house and you're trying to get it inside to a family, right? The cell wall is your front door. This food is outside your house. When you give it to organic, even when it's powder, the powder is too big to come in your door. You need this biology to break this shit down, and it takes a while. The more biology you have, the more people you have to process to butcher this outside to bring it in this to the plant, the faster it's going to happen. And so that's what that 6 weeks does. It gets the food in there. You're adding your bacteria and your funguses. You're giving them the sugars to live. You're giving them everything that they need. You're spraying the sugar, and I sprayed in with a water with just straight RO water. You just don't want tap because it's probably not going to do much with that, at least not initially. But it needs that time to break that food down so it can be absorbed. Is the shortest answer there. So you get the more it breaks down, the more over, and that 6 weeks is and like I said, I'm not putting this under a microscope. I'm not doing that shit. I'm trying it at 4 weeks, and it was like, oh, this is pretty good. I'm trying it at 5 weeks, and I'm trying, and it's like when I felt like when I went from 4 to 5, 5 to 6, I was seeing increased, use with it. I could drop off and like only water for a few days after I added it, and when I would just straight pot into it, things were fucking loving it, and it just did really good for me. And when I go longer than that, it gets even better. You just have to add that water and that sugar into it, So give it something to eat again.
What kind of sugar does it like?
I use a molasses called Hybrix. It's the cheapest thing that I've been able to come across, and it's a real thick, gnarly liquid. But you can get a liter of it for nothing, like under $10, I think it is.
What if I only got grandma's molasses in my fucking cabinet? Is that okay? Grandma's molasses from like
I can't say I've ever I can't say that for sure, but I think sugar is sugar in that instance.
Okay, perfect. Molasses is
Molasses
good.
might have some kind of like anti something effect to not like antibacterial effect or something since it's natural. Maybe I'm just crazy. I don't know anything about like true molasses, but the Hybrix molasses
This is good
works
stuff.
like a fucking charm, and it's probably way
Uh,
cheaper.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So then, what is the different? What is different here than with synthetic nutrients?
The synthetic nutrients, everything's broken down for you. So
Oh,
the synthetic nutrients pulls up in a truck. Everything's broken down and goes in on an automatic conveyor belt and is force fed into the fucking door. Like it's there. If you're seeing a deficiency, throw some synthetic fucking foods in there. And some of the synthetic foods aren't, sometimes the synthetic makes it sound a little worse than it is. Some of this shit isn't like all this nasty and that nasty, like Epsom salt is a salt. I think people consider that a synthetic, but maybe I'm way the fuck off on that too. But it's still a salt-based nutrient, but yeah, that's the biggest difference. Is that that's why you have to know. You have to plan ahead for the organic. You have to say, well, I know my farm every year. I know my pots because of the wattage I run and how I run it. I need this food boost at week 2 of flour because I need it to take effect week 6 or week 5, unless you do this pre-big breakdown. But even then, when you do that 6-week breakdown, when you add that shit, it's still gonna break down a little bit. It's still gonna, it's not gonna even if you add salts afterwards, it's not gonna just straight kill everything. If you had super high salts, you might be doing some damage, but it's not just going to go away. You're establishing like a pretty, hopefully, high concentration of this shit. So, even if you're adding salt, and that's the best part of everything for me. I'm a synth-organic. I love organic. I love flavor. I love all that stuff. What I don't love is running just straight organic because especially when you run a ton of different strains, it's like, how are you going to predict that this strain is going to want that or this in this many weeks? Like, you don't do it. Like, for me at least, I'm not talented enough. So I run my organic bases. I run an organic tea that I break down the foods. It's kind of similar in soil, but in water. And I feed those, knowing that they're getting fed to a 1.8 EC, probably 1.7 EC in the soil. Hoping that it doesn't kill everything, but planning for the worst and hoping for the best. So
there you go. So breaking down the organic food indoors versus outdoors, though, is there a big difference there?
well, the outdoors you have nature. So when you talk about this organic food, like say you have a bed, um, like an outdoor bed, you could just throw this food in there and kind of like scrape it in the top. You know, now you might find that some of it attracts wildlife. They can smell some of this different stuff, so you might be saying, okay, I don't have that problem, but I've heard that like the oyster type stuff and the animal type products will attract wildlife. So like fish type stuff. Um, I've never had that problem, but I have 3 dogs that are all running around my yard constantly, and I don't know, but um, you don't have to outdoors. You don't have to inoculate. You don't have to do all that stuff because the rain will do it and the nature will do it, unless everything's real bad. I mean, if you have a super barren ground, that's kind of what that growing a revolution's about. By David Montgomery, I was talking about before. If you have a super barren ground, throwing some organics down isn't just going to pop it back to life. You're going to have to throw it down. You're going to have to protect it. You're going to have to throw leaves over it. You're going to have to do a bunch of different shit to kind of like just protect it in the short run. But yeah, it's outdoors way easier for sure.
Nice. So organic gardening outdoors.
Yeah.
I mean, testing. What else? I mean, what do we need to know about then if we're going to do this outdoors?
Well, yeah, that's the big thing right there. So you get your soil test. That's the easiest way to go about it. You get that recipe we just gave was like a overall recipe. I don't know what my soil is. I don't want to get it tested. Okay, use this. If you're going to use that outdoors, um, I use that on an inner nothing's in the medium. That's all that's there. But when you're outdoors, it's a lot of different shit. So get your soil tested and go off of that. The places are good. They'll be like, hey, you have this much. You're low on this and you're low on that, and they'll suggest stuff for you to do. I think they even give you numbers like put 5 pounds of this per square acre or whatever the fuck the measurements come down to. But they're good, and what you can do is year after year, you get those measurements and you keep track of what the measurements are and you keep track of your additives, and you're going to be able to find, especially if you don't necessarily have to keep the same plants in the same garden beds, but if you follow these plants, you can start to see year after year, well, when I have this much medium and this much food, the strawberry's taking this, this, and this from me. So I know next year going into this bed that's reading all of these numbers, if I add all these numbers, it's going to bring this bed out to perfect the year after that. And you can kind of just do that every fucking year if you're chasing your shit, or if you're keeping track of it. It's a lot harder said than done. It's really following stuff pretty closely, but have an outline, follow it, amend things in the fall, protect them, stop raking up your leaves. Like I rake up a lot of my leaves, but I have a smaller property and I have a fuck ton of trees on it. I always leave a layer of at least leaves. Maybe I'll mulch them a little bit, and then I throw at least like 6 inches of leaves on all my garden beds every single year. It just protects all your life down there, and if you're giving it the good stuff, you can, and your things are happy and loving life, you can assume the good stuff down there, and you're just protecting the good stuff to come back better next year.
That's keep your leaves, keep some of them. I tell that to Mrs. Weedman every year, and she goes, I don't like looking at the leaves out in the backyard, and it snows and the leaves get all in there, and I want it to be pretty. Well, I always tell her, if you keep the leaves back there, a nice little layer, you can go anytime throughout the year, like in the cold, and you lift a couple leaves up, and that grass is still nice and fresh.
Sure, yeah. Sure.
Keeps your grass like moist and fresh and clean. Yeah, I mean, it keeps it protected through the winter, and then all of a sudden you blow those leaves off like first couple warm days of spring, and that grass looks fucking amazing.
Yeah, it'll feed it too, and that you'll actually have like worms come up and grab pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I mulch. I keep probably half of my leaves, and I mulch about half of what I keep, and I like just spray it in the yard. I know my neighbors love me. Just spray it all over my yard because I want it. It's just I'm trying to feed my yard. I don't want to have to throw it actual food, and it works really well. And you know what else that does is because you don't have to just protect from the cold. You have to protect from how fucking dry it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, if anybody who's growing indoors right now, look at the humidity that you're getting. If you're somewhere that's getting cold, it's dropping. I had to add 2 humidifiers already.
So glad I bought that new humidifier. Oh, it's working so nice.
It's every winter it does, and every winter I'm always like, why is everything looking so fucking shitty? And then I have to be like, oh yeah, it's happened every year forever. It's getting real dry and cold down here at the night. Mm-hmm. You need to add your humidifier and your heater. I don't know why I can't predict that.
It comes every year. It gets a little cooler and drier every year. It's getting dry. This was like this year. The last couple of years, man, have been really dry. Not only just in the spring and summer, but I mean, I'm not complaining about the great weather at all. I mean, it's been fantastic this year, so I'm not complaining. But it's dry right now. I mean, my grass, it like took a turn because it got so dry. And I don't water it past October. You think because I don't know, you just stop watering your lawn. You just do, and it's so dry back there. It's just like not lustful looking good right now. It's still green too. That's even the crazy part. How nice your grass can look if the weather's nice. I mean, you can especially in the Midwest. It's going to be a dry winter this year. They said dry and mild. Yeah, so Yeah, so just think about that when you're planting your indoor garden this year, with this great amazing mixture that, Big Girl has taken time to teach us about to use. So I mean, uh it's amazing, So to do your outdoor and your indoor grow, I'm going to try to maybe not this next grow, but the grow after, and maybe
I'll bring you
and
a bed.
do yeah, I love you.
I'll bring you a
And
bed.
then but try to
This
do
stuff
only
works great
cocoa.
for everything, dude. My one of my buddies has, I couldn't even guess, maybe 50 house plants. He has them fucking everywhere, all over his house. It's like a chore to take care of these things. He does it well. And I've been giving him this mix, and he's been loving it. He just keeps asking for more. Well, I've got to up pot this, and I got to do this and this. I need more. I'm like, well, how much more? Like 5 times what you brought me last time. I'm like, bro, this
Damn,
is taking up
those
real
plants
estate.
those plants must love it though.
Yeah, they all look good. And my dude and people's we've got 3 or 4 testers going out with that now, and it's a combo run with the nutrients that you had. So
Yeah,
that eventually you'll be able to get that exact soil mixture with a few other things in there broken down over time with the synthetic mesh and maybe a couple autoflower feminized seeds.
yeah,
And
that's what
we'll
I'm
be
waiting
able to just
for.
fucking blast things out.
Oh, I love it. Just
Right on the
grow.
deck.
You were talking about some autos that you're about to harvest up. That you said are pretty fucking dope, huh?
That's what the yayo was.
Mm,
They've all, man, the smell from this
just
plant. They dried real nice. I was a little scared because I had to run nitrogen late because it was all in veg, and I ran almost all organic soil for it, but I had to catch up a little bit in the middle of the flower, and there was a couple other like veg plants on there, and I was like, I'm just gonna run it a little bit, try to blast them up, and I thought maybe I fucked up their flavor, but they turned out really well.
nice. I love it. Big Earl, anything else you got to talk about organics, gardening for anybody out there before we get going? And there's one last thing too. I know you got to talk about this. That
Yeah,
we need to definitely fucking add that you're totally to mention in this mixture of beautiness.
yeah, that's true. That is very true. No, man, I think that's everything, dude. I hope I gave some justice to some of this. A lot of it, like I said, a lot of it's just me reading stuff and my interpretation of people's words and my, it's. But these people are badasses. Go through and listen to those names again and go. If any of this stuff interests you, order some of those books, listen to some of those podcasts, listen to some of those speeches. They do all kinds of cool shit. All on
Nice.
soil, regeneration of soil, how it works, how everything, how it all goes down.
Nice. And then in that mixture, there was one ingredient I didn't see on that fucking list, and I'm disappointed. What's that
Yeah,
fucking one thing you
it's
didn't
given.
add to this mixture?
I thought it was a given. I should have put it in there, but you could just skip everything, get the closest bottle of Cal Mag you have, and just add all of it. And you could run 3 or 4 full crops off that. I'd say at least that's if you've only got like a 1 or 2 gallon pot. If you get a bigger pot, you can run for the rest of your life. Cal Mag.
Does the body good? Everybody out in the world, don't forget your Cow Mag. Peace. Check out our cannabis lifestyle brand online at 8decades.com. Our custom smokes and accessories are perfect for your coffee table, bedroom nightstand, or kitchen counter. They're designed for you to show them off. The canna community is also loving our hemp and cotton blend t-shirts, sweatshirts, scarves, and hats, finished off with our 8 Decades logo. We've got some awesome long-lasting goods that will be your favorite for years to come. 8 Decades, because a 9th decade of cannabis prohibition isn't acceptable.